Look, we need big structural change in this country. And that means the kind of, let's just admit it, when you've got a government that works for the rich and it's not working nearly as well for anyone else, that's corruption. And we need to call it out plain and simple. So the first thing we need to do is we need to attack that corruption head on. I have the biggest anti-corruption bill since Watergate. Big problem? You got to have a big bill to deal with it. Now, it's got a lot of pieces to it, but the main point is to beat back on the influence of money, because that's how they keep getting this government, getting this country to work for them. So, for example, my bill says we're going to end lobbying as we know it. Block the revolving door between Main Street, between Wall Street and Washington. I'll give you one more. Everyone who runs for federal office ought to have to put their taxes online. Everyone. So part one, we got to deal with the corruption head on, but let me give you a part two. I was talking earlier about we got to rewrite the rules in this economy. And part of that is putting more power back in the hands of workers. Unions, that's one way to do it. I've got an accountable capitalism bill that says on the big Fortune 500 companies that we're going to have employees also sit on the board of directors and help make decisions. But there's one more we got to talk about, and that is my ultra millionaires tax. So the idea is on the truly great fortunes, $50 million and above, we start charging 2% a year on just that 50 millionth and first dollar and on up. 2% a year. By the way, anybody in here a homeowner? You've been paying wealth taxes for a long time. They're just called property taxes. I just want to include the Rembrandt and the diamonds in the property taxes. So I want to put a wealth tax in place, and I just want to talk to you for 1 minute about how that restructures our whole economy. We get a 2% tax on the 75,000 richest families in this country. We would have enough money to provide universal child care, universal pre-K, universal pre-K for every child in America and still have $2 trillion left over. Let's make it happen. Think about the big tech companies, Amazon, Facebook, Google, right? Here's what they do. They run a platform, okay, where people come. Let's just stick with Amazon. That's where you go to check out 63 coffee makers, all of which can be delivered in 24 hours, right? And think about this, just so you get an idea of how vast they are right now in our economy. Walmart is about 9% of all physical retail sales in America. Amazon, 49% of all online. So this is a big deal. If you want to sell online, you're a little guy, you're trying to get your business started, you're an entrepreneur, you gotta be there. So Amazon runs this platform, you come to the platform, all sounds great. But Amazon also is collecting information on every single buyer who visits and on every single seller who's there and on every single transaction. And what it does is it has the capacity to look out there and see, Pete's pet pillows and say, whoa, Pete had a good idea here. He's making money off this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take Pete off page 1, move him back to page 16 where nobody goes, and then Amazon Pete Pet Pillows is going to step right in front of him. Think of it this way, like in baseball. You can be an umpire, run the platform, or you can have a team in the game, run one of the businesses competing with the other businesses. But you don't get to do both at the same time. So here's my pitch. I just want to break those two things apart. I want you still to be able to go and check out all the coffee makers you want to check out. The platform works, but nobody gets to suck a lot of information off the platform for the purpose of being able to put a bunch of little businesses out of business. We want to have more competition in America, break up those tech giants. We can make that work. This is just a reminder that folks can say whatever they want, but the reality is, at least for me, I believe in markets. And I believe in the value that we get out of markets. But it's got to be markets with rules. You know, market without rules is theft. But a market with rules, a market with a cop on the beat to enforce those rules, that's how it is. That small businesses get a chance to start and to grow. That's how it is that employees get to move from one place to another. That's how it is that we get new products. I'm a supporter of markets with rules. And what's wrong right now in Washington is the big folks, they don't want rules. These giant corporations, they just want to be able to run over whoever they want to run over. And if that means run over their own employees, then by golly, they'll do it. If that means run over their customers, by golly, they'll do it. If that means running over their local communities, by golly, they will do it. So the way I see this is we not only need a government that's on our side with these rules, we need big, systemic change. And that means we need more balance out there in the marketplace. And I'll tell you real quick a couple of ways we can do that. The first one is we need for employees to have more power. And that means we need to make it easier to join a union, and unions need to have more power once people have joined. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class. That's how we make it happen. Washington is working great. It's working fabulously for giant drug companies. It's just not working for people who are trying to get a prescription filled. It's working great for big oil companies that want to drill everywhere. It's just not working for people who see climate change bearing down upon us. It's working great for giant financial institutions and for payday lenders. It's just not working great for people who are living paycheck to paycheck. I'm tired of Washington that works for the rich and the powerful. I want a Washington that works for the rest of America. That's why I'm in this fight. And I believe on that Democrats, independents, and Republicans, they know a scam when they see it. And they see a Washington working for those guys. I think they're ready to get in the fight and get a Washington and a country that works for the rest of America. Thank you. You know, this scandal just shows one more time that some folks who are rich just think they don't have to play by the same set of rules as anyone else, and that they can use their money to do whatever it is in terms of buying influence. We have to put a stop to that. And it's not just, it's everywhere now. And we're here talking about a presidential primary. It's everywhere in Washington. You know, I want to say something about democracy for a minute. I get that we have a lot of differences. There'll be some people who have a little more money, some people have a little less, some people who go further in school, some people who don't. But the one thing we should all own an equal share of is an equal share of our democracy. We need a government that doesn't just listen to the rich and the powerful, but a government that listens to all of us. And that starts right now in a Democratic primary. Something you can ask everyone in the Democratic primary who wants to ask for your vote is to ask them where they've been and how they've gotten their funding. Me, I don't take corporate PAC money. In fact, I don't take PAC money of any kind. don't take federal lobbyist money. And I don't go behind closed doors with people of money and influence to try to get their help in this election. I come here to be with you. Because I believe that our democracy is really on the ropes. We have a country that's working better and better and better for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. In 2020, we have a chance to take that back. We have a chance to build a real grassroots foundation, face-to-face, person-to-person, neighborhood to neighborhood. And if you believe that is how we should be running our presidential primary, I ask you, be part of this. Go to ElizabethWarren.com. Be part of this. Make a contribution. Volunteer. We're going to have to build this thing ourselves because democracy is not a machine that will go of itself. And government, our government, is not for sale. We need a government that works for the people, and that means the people have to be there as part of it. Thank you. I believe we need a constitutional amendment that protects the right to vote for every American citizen and to make sure that vote gets counted. We need to put some federal muscle behind that. And we need to repeal every one of the voter suppression laws that is out there right now. And I'll tell you one more. We need to make sure that every vote counts. And I want to push that right here in Mississippi because I think this is an important point. You know, come a general election, presidential candidates don't come to places like Mississippi.
That's true.
Yeah. They also don't come to places like California and Massachusetts, right? Because we're not the battleground states. Well, my view is that every vote matters. And the way we can make that happen is that we can have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College and every vote. Yep. Everybody. With the issue of climate change, and I want to say something that is very controversial. So most of you are sitting down. Maggie, you may want to sit down too, okay, or just hold on to a chair. Because I spend time in Washington. In Washington, this is a very controversial statement. I believe in science. Change is real, it is man-made, and we are running out of runway to be able to fix this problem. We need all hands on deck on this one. So I mentioned earlier, as part of infrastructure, we need to be thinking about infrastructure in terms of hardening our infrastructure against the climate change that's coming our way, and in terms of building green energy infrastructure. We need to do more, though. We got to be working in every single direction. More money on research, more money on how we get our vehicles so that we get to a place where we have a sustainable Earth. This is truly the crisis that faces not just our nation, but the world. The United States is a world leader. The problem is we are leading in the wrong direction right now on climate. We got to go the other way. We got to show the world what can be done. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on Maggie's question because she talked about the gas tax. And as you know, the federal gas tax has not been raised since 1993, leaving many states to fend for themselves to maintain the roads and bridges. Would you support, theoretically, raising the gas tax to pay for the infrastructure needs?
So, I'll tell you what worries me about doing this through gas tax. I'm open to the conversation, but what worries me is it falls hardest on working people. When I talk about raising taxes, what I really want to see is I want to see an ultra-millionaires tax. I want to see taxes on the top. And then let's use that to help subsidize what it is that we really want to see, cleaner vehicles. That's the direction I'd much rather see us go. I want to get us there, but I want to do it the other way.
So you are a co-sponsor of Senator Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill, and I understand there are a lot of different paths to universal coverage, but his bill that you've co-sponsored would essentially eliminate private insurance. Is that something you could support?
He's got a runway for that. I think we get everybody together, and that's what it is. We'll decide. I've also co-sponsored other bills, including expanding Medicaid is another approach that we use.
You grew up in Oklahoma.
I did.
And you've talked about how your family stood at the brink. One person from Oklahoma.
There we go.
Welcome to Mississippi.
Okay.
So you talked about how your family stood at the brink of financial disaster through a good part of your childhood. How has that shaped your life in the Senate?
So I'll tell you about that. So I have 3 older brothers. They all went off and joined the military. That was their ticket to America's middle class. I was the late in life baby. My mother always just called me the surprise. And about the time I was in middle school, my daddy had a heart attack. And it was serious. Thought he was going to die. The church neighbors brought covered dishes. It was a scary time. He survived, but he couldn't go back to work. And we lost our family station wagon. And at night, I'd hear my parents talk. And that's where I learned words like mortgage and foreclosure. And I remember the day that I walked into my parents' bedroom, and laying out on the bed is the dress. And some people here will know the dress. It's the one that only comes out for weddings, funerals, and graduations. And my mother's in her slip, and she's stocking feet, and she's pacing back and forth, and she's crying. She's saying, "We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house." She was 50 years old. She'd never worked outside the home. She was truly terrified. And I watched her while she finally just pulled it together, put that dress on, put on her high heels, blew her nose, and walked to the Sears and got a minimum wage job. And that minimum wage job saved our house, but more importantly, it saved our family. Anybody who wants to know me has just heard the story. But here's the thing for me now. For a long time, I used to think that was just a story about my mother. How when you get scared, you reach down, you find what you have to find, and you bring it up. And then years later, I came to understand this is a story about millions of Americans who, it doesn't matter if you're scared. When you got to do something to take care of people you love, you reach down, you find it, and you pull it up. And then it was years later that I came to understand it was also a story about government. Because when this happened to my family, the minimum wage in America would support a family of 3. It would take care of a mortgage, utilities, and put food on the table. Today in America, a full-time minimum wage job will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. I am in this fight because I believe that is wrong. You know, it's for me, there's the whole story of why I'm in this fight. Washington once asked the question, at least on minimum wage, what does it take to support a family, to get a little toe in the door? Today, I hear them in Washington. They ask, What will improve the profitability of giant multinational banks? Well, I want a government that doesn't work for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for little families like mine. I've had one dream since I was in 2nd grade. There's just one thing I wanted to be. All 3 of my brothers went off and joined the military, and God bless them. You know what I wanted to be? I wanted to be a public school teacher from the time I was in 2nd grade. Can we hear it for America's public school teachers? Yeah. But you got to have a 4-year diploma to do that. And by the time I graduated high school, my family didn't have the money for a college application, much less to send me off to school. And I have a long and twisty story. Got a scholarship, then I fell in love, got married the first time. And I thought I'd lost it all. I thought I'd given up on that dream. And I found a commuter college, public college, that cost $50 a semester. And that was my ticket. And I became a special needs teacher. I got to live my dream. So let me just say, I believe in what we can do through education. But if America wants to be a stronger country, America wants to be a country of real opportunity for everyone, then that means that every kid has a right to get an education without getting crushed by student loan debt. Period.
Faith is very important to many people across the country. It's very important to many people in Mississippi. What role does faith play in your life, your public life and your private life?
So I was raised as a Methodist, and I was a 5th grade Sunday school teacher. All I can say is nobody got hurt. It was a low bar for being a 5th grade Sunday school teacher at our church. And I raised my children in the Methodist church. What it is for me is the importance of the lessons we learn when we remember our values, when we remember our faith. The story for me is Matthew 26. And I'm sure some of you, a lot of you, know this story. You know, this is the one where the shepherd is dividing the world into the sheep and the goats. And as we all know, sheep are going to heaven, goats, nah, they're not. And the sheep ask him, why us? Why us, Lord? Why did you pick us? We look like those guys. And the shepherd, the Lord, answers back by saying, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me water. I was in prison and you visited me. Naked and you clothed me. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of these, the least of thy brethren, ye have done it unto me. And what I hear in that is 2 things that guide me every day. The first is there is God. There is value in every single human being. Every single human being. And the second is that we are called to action. That passage is not about you had a good thought and held on to it. You sat back and were just a part of the, thought about good things. It does not say you just didn't hurt anybody and that's good enough. No, it says you saw something wrong. You saw somebody who was thirsty. You saw somebody who was in prison. You saw their face. You saw somebody who was hungry, and it moved you to act. I believe we are called on to act.
All right, thank you to Senator Elizabeth Warren. Thank you as well to our audience here and to Jackson State University. Great questions from all of you. Thank you so much. Be sure to tune in Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. Dana Bash will moderate the next CNN Democratic candidate town hall with former Colorado